Hey guys, welcome to Saints TV. In this video, I thought it'd be good to break down the new fixture that came out on Monday. At 1 p.m. it was released from rounds 2 to 5. It's just good to have footy back. I mean, that's the first thing that you take from this, is that June 11 is when it all kicks off. We officially kick off on June 14th, I believe it is, the Sunday, the very last game of round 2. Of course, it's common for Saints fans to cop that shitty time slot where it's, the Twilight Sunday. This is even later, and we'll get into that. It's a 6:05 p.m. slot on a Sunday, which is interesting. In this video, we're going to talk about the matchups, the teams that we're playing, what I think of the draw, how I think we're going to go, and then, obviously you guys can comment and we can talk about, where we think our club will be at after the 5th round. So let's just get straight into it. Let's talk about the games that we've been allocated for rounds 2 to 5. So the first one is St Kilda v the Western Bulldogs, 6:05 Sunday the 14th. That is at Marvel. Followed by round 3, we've got Collingwood at the G, which is great because last year I think we only had the one game at the MCG. So this year we've actually got an early game straight off the bat against one of the best teams in the comp that we beat in pre-season. So that's going to be interesting to see how we go up against them in the season proper. From that, it does not get any easier. We've got Richmond. This is at Marvel Stadium. This is Maddie's match, 4:35 on Saturday, the 27th of June. And then we'd round it out in round 5 with another MCG game against the Blues at 1:45 on the Saturday, the 4th of July. So, the first game being the Sunday shitty time slot, but the next 3, you've got Collingwood, Richmond, Carlton. You've got 3 of, say, the top 4 or 5 biggest Victorian clubs succeeding in those weeks after we play the Bulldogs. So the important thing for me here is that we take care of business against teams like the Dogs and the Blues particularly. We beat the Dogs last year. Carlton got us last year at the G late in the season. If I had to pick, if you had to go through these games and look at them in terms of a win-loss, I honestly wouldn't give a shit if we dropped the Bulldogs and the Carlton games, as long as we compete and we challenge against Collingwood and Richmond. Because in all honesty, if we beat the Bulldogs by 10 goals, beat Carlton by 10 goals, and then we lose by 10 goals to each of Collingwood and Richmond, it feels like we're not really going anywhere. We're that team will beat up on some of the smaller teams, no offense to the Dogs and the Blues, but we'll beat up on those teams that are around us, maybe just below us, just above us, but we want to beat those teams and compete against those teams that are way above and, the top 4 aspirations. And I know the Dogs, in recruiting Bruce and a bunch of other players, they look to be in that top 4 to top 6 ladder position. But then you've got Richmond and Collingwood, who are teams that have played in recent grand finals. Richmond being the form team of the last 3 years. And then you've got Carlton, who are, the up-and-coming team of the comp. Everyone thinks, at least anyway. They've got the youngsters, they've got the new coach. There's a lot of optimism in Carlton. So when I'm looking at this fixture in isolation, I'm thinking, shit, that's actually hard. That's a very hard fixture. We were 5 goals up against North in round 1, and we fucking blew it. Let's face it, we should have been 1-0 going into, COVID-19 lockdowns, and it would have been okay, But when you lose like we lost in round 1, and then there's an extended period off, there's just time to think about it, to mull over it. You get a bit upset about it even more. There's so many things that go through your mind. Hopefully for the players, in this time off, they've looked at this game in good detail and understood that that's not acceptable, and that against the Bulldogs, Collingwood, Richmond, Carlton, you cannot have those lapses in concentration. We did it against North, and you could see how easily they took over in that second half after being 5 goals down. Imagine, not even being 5 goals up in the Bulldogs, Collingwood, Richmond, and Blues games, and then having that lapse in concentration. They will make you pay, and you will lose. So the message for me is we've got to be switched on. And against the Dogs, it's critical that we utilize our forward line. I think our forwards can take hold of their back line. I think, our back line is probably the stronger of the two. Now with Dougal Howard coming back in, you've got Dylan Robertson back in. Wilkie having played every game last season. Ben Long looking exciting off halfback. Hunter Clark floating there. Jaron Geary back from injury. Jake Carlisle, who didn't play in... did he play in round one? I don't think he did. So there's Josh Battle, who didn't play in round one. So there's so many aspects of that backline that I think can work for us against a Josh Bruce and Norton. A bunch of other players there as well for the Dogs. Whereas the Dogs, I think, we've got Membry, King, Gresh. Billings can rest there now. Loney's in good form. Rowan Marshall, Paddy Ryder in the ruck can rest there. I think we can get hold of him. In terms of Collingwood, geez, it's going to be hard. They're one of the best teams in the comp. The beauty of it is, though, that it's at the MCG, and I actually think that if that game was at Marvel, they'd have a bigger chance. But it being at the G, I think we actually play the G really well. And when we've got 2 MCG games out of the 4 here, that's great. I mean, playing Carlton at the G and playing Collingwood at the G in a 4-week slot, that's sensational. That's the sort of games that you want to be in front of what would have been in front of big crowds. Obviously, no crowds now, but they're big time. They're big ticketed games. And it's a shame that there's no crowds because these are games that, you can make money from. You can get more awareness of the club if you play well in them, get more members signing up. So there's so many positives to this. The downside of this draw is, and as you guys would know, is the lack of free-to-wear for the club. And I know that a lot of people have commented and said, well, we deserve that. We're not a great team. We're not even a top 8 team yet. So why can we demand free-to-wear? I just think that if you're playing Collingwood, you're playing Carlton, you're playing Richmond, there's 3 there that you'd think maybe 2 of them would be on Channel 7 free-to-wear. Not one of them. And all of them are in that prime Saturday time slot. It's not like they're Sunday shitty twilight time. These are Saturday Arvo at the G, at Marvel, against big membered teams that have, 70+ thousand members, a lot of them. And we're not getting a Channel 7 go, and you're looking at the fixture and there's other games they've got on Channel 7 at the same time, and they're nowhere near as interesting, Sydney Port or whatever would be an alternative. I would take Saints Collingwood over Sydney Port any day, but that's just me. But obviously Matt Finnis has come out. He said that there are still positives to come from this. I'll just read you a bit of what he had to say. He said it adds up. You look at the end of the year and you're talking about the total audience that you're able to deliver to your sponsors, and obviously they're interested in particular types of audiences, but the sheer number of eyeballs you're able to deliver goes to what it is ultimately your various assets are worth in a marketplace. Clearly the clubs that are playing more regularly on free-to-wear in front of big crowds are in better position to monetize those assets. He said the AFL might work with the clubs to provide more assets, presumably content to deliver coverage to sponsors, because obviously you don't have the Channel 7 coverage. You need to make up for it in another way. So, I mean, for a club like us that's in a lot of debt, I think it's really important that we find other ways to get that awareness, to get the eyeballs to the club. Because when we start winning and we get more coverage, it's going to all add up and it's going to put our club in a really strong financial position moving forward. Back to the draw, though. In terms of win-loss and how I think we're going to go, I want at least 2 wins here. I want at least to beat the Dogs and the Blues, and I want to challenge Collingwood and Richmond. And out of the 2 of the Collingwood and Richmond, I think we can get Collingwood at the G. I genuinely think we can get Collingwood. Richmond at Marvel, I think that suits Richmond. I think the closed-off, smaller ground suits their pressure game and makes it more contested, and that's what Richmond is so good at. Whereas in the MCG, I feel like we could actually, create width on the ground and play that uncontested chipping and passing game. But at Marvel, kind of puts it more into their hands. But it doesn't matter. We've got the beauty of this fixture is you've got 2 games, Bulldogs and Blues, that you're in it, you could be favourites, and you should be in the game deep into the last quarter with a chance of winning. And then you've got 2 other games that are against top 3, top 4 contenders, premiership favourites as well. Teams that have played in the 2018 and 2019 grand finals. That's a chance to be like, okay, where do we stand? Where are we at here? Do we have a chance to win? That's what I think is the main positive of this draw, is that you've got 2 games against teams that you should beat, and then 2 games against teams that you could beat if you go to the next level. And I want to see how we can go to the next level in this period. And I think without crowds, it could benefit us. You know, playing Collingwood with none of the Collingwood faithful, same with the Richmond faithful, going nuts in the stands, yelling ball at every opportunity. I think it's really cool that that's happening for us, and it might actually work out in our favour. But that's my take on the draw. I think it's a good draw. You want to be playing hard games. You want to be playing against big Victorian teams. And I want to see how we stand up in this period. And, you know, either way, no matter how it goes, at least footy is back. You know, at least footy's back. It's been too long since it has. We've got 2 weeks to go, and then we take on the Dogs. So I cannot wait for that. But that's my thoughts, guys. Comment your thoughts. What do you think of the draw? How many wins do you think we're going to be after round 5? I'd love to be, say, 3-2. That'd be great. You know, going past, you know, the North Melbourne debacle in round 1 and then pinching a few wins here. That would be amazing. Worst case scenario, 2-3. You know, I do not want to have 1 win after 5. You're too far back at that point. But the good thing is, playing some of these difficult teams early means that the draw will open up later. We can get to play the Gold Coast Suns a bit more, Fremantle, you know, who else is there? Essendon we haven't played. So there's other teams there that we'll get that will have a big chance of winning. And the good thing is, in the original fixture, I think we only had 1 MCG game, but in this fixture, up until round 5, we've already got 2 MCG games. So clearly, we might be playing more games at the MCG, which is great. And if you make finals played on the MCG, good experience for a lot of our players who are inexperienced in general. So, you know, for them to get a chance on the G, even without a crowd, is huge for their confidence and for their experience. So I think this is a good draw. I'm happy with that. But we'll see after round 5 if I think it's a good draw. If we're 4 wins and 1 loss after that period somehow, it's the best draw. If we're not, it's the shittest draw. But it is what it is. Every team's going to get easy and hard games. And I'm glad that all these games are in Melbourne. So we're locked down in Melbourne for the 4-week period. So we'll see how we go. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Let me know your thoughts on this and how you think we're going to go in this period, in these 4 weeks. And I'll respond when I can. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos on the Saints TV YouTube channel. And I'll see you guys soon. Go Saints.